This is Capturing Light, episode number 146 with Matt Sill.
Welcome to Capturing Light, a director of photographers podcast, spotlighting cinematography tips, tools, and techniques, inspiring and educating filmmakers like you so you can illuminate your vision. And now, your host, Les Gaddis.
Welcome to the Capturing Light podcast. I'm your host, Les Gaddis. Today we are talking to cinematographer Matt Sill. For the second, he was on the podcast a few years back, and we were talking about a project then, and we are back at it again, talking about a new project and talking about what he's done since. So I really enjoyed this interview, and we actually got to do it in person, which that's always a treat because it's not every day that you get two cinematographers in the same room at the same time. So here's that interview with Matt Sill.
Awesome. So I want to thank Matt Sill for coming on the Capturing Light podcast again. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. So this is your second time back.
Yeah.
So super excited to talk to you about everything that's going on and has been going on since the first time. Which, man, it seems like so long ago that we actually talked about, your last project.
I won't tell everything because then it would be like a therapy session, but yeah.
So since then, what has been going on? Have you been, staying busy? Like what have you been up to? And also just, tell people that may have not listened to that podcast, like who you are, kind of a synopsis of your journey into the industry.
Yeah. My name is Matt Sill. I'm a cinematographer based in Los Angeles, California. Small town. And there's a I went to Full Sail University back in I graduated in 2014. So gosh, that's so long ago. It was almost 10 years. And then I went to since then, I started freelancing in 2017, as a cinematographer. I was working full time at places before that, and now I lived in Dallas for 3 years. That's where I met you, and then now I'm in Los Angeles since the end of 2019. So I guess now it's been 4 years. It's crazy too, and freelance out there. I did the ASC masterclass as well in 2019. And then as far as the stuff I do I'm mainly commercials right now. I do some narrative shorts maybe. I haven't done a feature yet, but fingers crossed for 2024.
Right.
And basically been out there doing freelance cinematography ever since. So
right. No, that's awesome. And what has been I guess the biggest difference between what you were doing, in Dallas versus in LA?
I'd say it's weird because when I moved from Dallas to LA, I still felt like I was traveling a lot to Dallas, and COVID happened 3 months later, so my networking wasn't great, or as great as I wanted it to be. Because of that, and then so from there I went to I started to do some shoots in Dallas. I ended up traveling a lot back and forth to Dallas, and it was funny because even some of the connections that I made in LA, I was still the jobs just happened to be in Dallas.
Right.
I remember I did some events did some shoots for the Call of Duty League, and they were like, great, well, it's gonna be at Arlington Esports Arena. And I'm like, oh, in Dallas? They're like, yeah. And I was like, that's okay.
Right.
That's funny. So, and then, but I'd say the biggest difference is there's a lot more, I hate calling cinematographers competition because I feel like cinematography or the cinematography community is very much a family in a way, to a degree. I think there's still an aspect everyone wants the job. They don't want to give it to somebody else, even their friends.
Right.
But I think a lot of people in the cinematography community are very what's the word? Like they're very appreciative of each other's work, and they want to see each other succeed. Like we all want to see each other succeed and do cool projects and
Right.
all that stuff. And so I think it's more cutthroat there, if that's the right term, or it's, there's a lot more competition, but at the same time, there's a lot of really talented cinematographers I've been fortunate to make friends with there, and a few that you've had on the podcast as well. And so, yeah, it's just that's the biggest thing I've noticed is there's the film community is bigger. It's definitely harder there, but like it's also just having that community around you, and like being near everything is really cool too. Like being near the ASC, going to events at the ASC, or just randomly like meeting actors and actresses or directors or whatever at like your local coffee shop, like that type of thing. It's pretty cool. So that's probably what I'd say the biggest difference is. Just like Dallas, it's like there's a great community here in Dallas, but Dallas is like it's still very small in comparison to LA, and so it's like LA is like it's brutal, but it's like very rewarding if you can make it.
Right, for sure. So what? Because I know you said it's been almost 10 years since Full Sail. Like, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but from then until now, do you feel like your time just being a cinematographer and working in the industry has helped continue to grow you, and you've learned more working than like learning through school, or do you have mentors or a mentor that kind of help with career path and learning?
So the first part of that, the school stuff, I mean, like, I think Full Sail's great. I would say I barely learned anything there though, and I graduated with like a 3.91 GPA. Like I did pretty well, and I don't feel like most of it applied to what I do.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's a knock on the school. It's probably a thing with a lot of schools.
Right.
But like for me, it's been all on like on the job, like figuring it out. Some of it's my own learning too, like doing I research stuff a lot. I read books. I'm like very, very intent on like pushing myself no matter what. Like it's like now that I don't have homework, it's like I make myself homework in a way. And then so I think it's been that. I think mentors too has been like really big. Like I have a few that I wouldn't say I have like an official mentor, but I have like a few really good cinematographers that have been very kind to me to share their knowledge with me, and to answer even some of the like dumbest questions that I have. Like they're always open to sharing, and also too they'll share stuff with, like not just like sharing like knowledge, but like they'll share like stuff from their jobs that like nobody else gets to see.
Right.
And it's really interesting to me to see, I'm working with, maybe I just do a commercial that was like a $300,000 budget. And then I look at, this guy who's like, oh, well, like we had similar problems and it's like a $4 million budget. And I'm just like,
right.
Okay. So like, I'm probably doing something right then, or like at least it makes me feel better about it. So I think mentors too is like a really underrated thing to have, or like, and it doesn't have to be like I'm fortunate that these are members of the ASC typically, but it doesn't have to be an ASC mentor. Like you can have everyone's on like different levels and stuff, and like we're all trying to grow, so it's like I think it's just finding someone that's like a step above you, or like where you want to be at the time, and talking to them and just asking them questions. And, I mean, there was a guy in Dallas that I did that with for a little bit when I first started out, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. Jake Wilganowski, I don't know if you know that name, but Jake is phenomenal Dallas DP. And I talked with him a few times we got coffee, I think, when I first met him. And it was I felt like cinematography was like, I kind of knew some of the technical stuff. It was more of I didn't have a clue on how to be a freelance cinematographer.
Right.
And he we sat down for 4 hours and he just shared all this stuff with me. And we still keep in touch. We still talk. He's doing phenomenal work here in Dallas, and it's it's really cool. Again, it goes back to the community and the camaraderie of being a cinematographer. So
right.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, man, I never even thought about mentorship and I want to find a mentor, do you have any tips? Did you just reach out to these people? Did you call them? Did you email them? Did you slip into their DMs on Instagram?
Yeah.
For someone that is wanting that, but they're maybe too scared to ask.
Yeah. Well, I personally charge $6,000 a day. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. No. I think it was a mix of things. I mean, I did the ASC masterclass and I met some there.
Mm-hmm.
But also, yeah, I just talked to I just am what do I have to lose to ask them?
Right.
To ask them stuff. Or there have been times that I've literally just gone up to people and at a coffee shop that I know is a really good cinematographer. And just gone up and talked to him because we have mutual people that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And, ended up picking their brain a little bit about some stuff. And yeah, it's and that's a lot for me because I'm a very big introvert.
Right.
If it were up to me, I'd sit in a room by myself most of the time, 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have my own little private trailer I could retreat to on every set. But yeah, it's I think it's just just reach out. I mean, I don't think it's I think especially with cinematography, with directors I think it's a little different, but with cinematography, and it's the same with ACs. My two of my roommates are ACs, and they they have, I'm sure, or at least I know one of them for sure has a mentor, and it could be the same thing. You just reach out and you're just hey, I'm trying to grow. I like the work that you do. And just picking their brain. I think we make it a bigger deal because I think sometimes it's with I think sometimes we look at oh man, this person worked on this movie, and instantly equate it to trying to reach out to let's say it's a movie with Brad Pitt, trying to reach out to Brad Pitt about something, when really it's not quite that. I mean, I'm sure there are some people where it's they just won't respond. They're just so busy and they won't whatever. But I think sometimes we put them on a bit of a pedestal, and really
Right.
they're just pretty down to earth people that
Right.
love filmmaking and they want to share. They're open to sharing.
Right.
So yeah, I just reach out. I don't know. I don't know that I'm not saying it's worked every time.
Right.
I've reached out to Bradford Young who knows how many times. I think 3 times, to be honest.
That's funny.
But I think at the end of the day, it's just, if you want something, you should just go for it.
Right.
And what's the worst thing they're gonna say? Hey, I'm sorry, I'm too busy.
Right.
All right. That's that. It's I don't think you have a lot to lose.
Right. No, for sure. Good advice for sure. So tell me a little bit about the project that we're going to be talking about today.
So there's a project, BU is what we're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
We worked with Cesar Velasco, who's a very talented director. I mean, we talked about this project for a bit. I think we initially were going to shoot December of 2022, and then just things, it sneaks up. Some other factors, like we all were just like, it's got to push. So it got pushed to January 2023. I was in Houston at the time too, so like I was gonna have to. I was like, if I can make a little extra money right now, like I'll just do that. Or I was working in Houston, and so yeah, and then basically from there I went from, I was fortunate to like be able to do the prep in Houston, or at least like the pre-production. And then just like this project, it's about a guy who's a drummer, and it's like kind of like how he expresses himself and like his individuality, and it's a really fun project, and I think overall, it like as a whole, just the way that it came out, I was pretty happy with, and it was something that was like really pushed me style wise. So, and again, that was a lot because of the way like Cesar wanted it, and I thought it was great. Like I would have shot it differently if it were me, only on it, but I think it wouldn't be the same project that it is. So
right.
I mean, it's a huge credit to him.
So for from like the prep, like what camera, what lenses, what was your kind of package going into it?
So camera wise, we used the Lexa Mini LF. With we kind of were looking at, initially we were looking at the Blackwing 7s, but those were not available those dates that we needed them. And to get them shipped from LA was like kind of a whole deal. And so we were looking at some of the other options, and one of them was the Leica Rs. And it was cool because we were looking at, we wanted full frame. We were initially shooting 4:3, and or that was the plan. We ended up finishing it like the same aspect ratio as Open Gate.
Okay.
Blanking on what that is at the moment. I want to say 1.44, but I don't remember. Anyway, so we ended up going with the Leica Rs, and they're kind of like vintage too, which is like I love vintage glass.
Right.
So it was such an interesting thing. I'd never worked with them. I'd worked with the Summicron Cs on a Kia commercial, but other than that, I'd never worked with them. And it was my first time shooting for again at the time. It's not that far off, but like at the time, a 4:3 aspect ratio, and that was actually like a goal of mine, was to do something like that, because I think, I'd never actually shot full frame too. We'd shot full frame, but then we cut it down. Like
right.
So it was kind of like a, going into prep with that, it was really fun because just like getting to test like how close we could get to people. I mean, and the Leica R package that we had, I mean, I think we had like a 19 and a 23. I think it was a 23. And we lived on, I think it was the 20. No, maybe it was the 19 we lived on. No, it was the 23. Primarily, we were on the 23. And so just being able to get so close to people's faces, and like you just, especially full frame, you just feel like you're right next to them.
Right.
And like that's the feeling that we wanted. So there was that. Overall, like it was interesting because, I think one of the initial talks that we had too was doing anamorphic and doing something like a vintage, like a Kawa or a Lomo.
Right.
Which, I've always wanted to do that. No one's ever allowed me to bring something that like dirty per se onto a product, So you're not doing it in commercials. Like no one, it very rarely will you like see a Kawa, I feel like, on a commercial,
right?
Or at least the ones that I've done. Agencies would kill me. So it was really fun, like looking at it, because it's such a different aspect ratio too. You're looking at like essentially like a 2.35 crop, and then a 4.3, and so like just the difference in like the difference in emotion is so interesting, like that you're seeing on people's face, but like just with how much we lost vertically, it was not worth it because of like the whole feeling is like showing how close we can get to someone's face and like
Right.
how the emotion on their face and it just like didn't translate or didn't
Right.
go through the same way. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I mean overall we went with the like ours and it was amazing. It was I love those lenses. Definitely would use them again.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean and that was like the mini LF with it too just made it was such an
Right.
easy package cuz a lot of our stuff was handheld too.
Mhm.
So it felt very compact, like we could still make it fairly compact for
Right.
what we were working with.
Yeah, the Leica R's are like some of my favorite glass, I think. If you're talking about in that price range and form factor,
Hmm.
like I feel like, I mean, a lot of people know about the Leica R's, but I don't think a lot of people put respect on
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
particular uh that that kit. So I know you said you did a lot of stuff handheld. Um, One thing that I think the project really has is a lot of energy.
Hmm.
Can you talk about like the camera movement and why you chose to? Did you operate or did you have an operator?
So I operated a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
Cesar actually did the most of it.
Okay.
And there was a reason for that. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, and it was kind of like what I told him is like, hey, look, if you want me to operate, I will operate, but I know there's certain things that you want,
Mm-hmm.
and like that communicating it, like we had some scenes where we just had to move, and
Right.
so um I was like, if it's easier for you to operate, like take the camera, like feel
Right.
free, like I don't want to make it sound like I'm not gonna let you touch the camera, like I'm not opposed to the director work, doing that.
Right.
And yeah, so he ended up operating a bit. And yeah, I would say probably for the majority of the handheld shots. Um and then I did a few passes, but yeah, and then but and then the other thing we had a Steadicam.
Mm-hmm.
um and for there's a scene underneath a bridge. It's like a very dark like overhead spotlight, and that one we had a Steadicam for,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the only scene. And then I think other than that, it was we did some sticks, but mainly the majority of it's handheld. And that I think that's what's so interesting about that project. I think was like the like I grew up playing drums.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say I was very good, but like I mean, it was okay. But like it was like the rhythm of it, I think, really fed into like our decisions. I
Right.
think like just like and it was punk, so it was like very like it's just lots of like fast paced and whatever. So like if it was something that was like a slower type of music, we obviously we would have adjusted accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what made it so much fun to operate on, because it was or I guess for Cesar, because of how like we could be really dynamic with our movements and like really rough with it. I mean, I think it's interesting too, because not just like the movements that affected it. Cesar and I talked about doing some 6 frames per second stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that feeds into it too, because it's this blurry effect that
Right.
you're getting that like to me feels very energetic too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just like the editing too. It was really really well edited
Right.
to me. It's just like the way the cuts are. It's so fast, but it's at the right times, and it's at
Right.
the right times to slow down and to use our slower shots that we had, and then just like to go back to like something really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I will say too, actually, now that I think about it, so on there's a bedroom scene and a motel scene. Those we actually had a JL Fisher on.
Mm-hmm.
So like we had a few slower movements there. We still did some pretty fast stuff with it, but we had some slower movements there, and I think that was like the editor just perfectly, like with the score, you just like perfectly knew when to like bring those out,
Right.
and then to go back into fast pace.
Right.
And so I think it's just like a combination of things. I think it's a combination of things, and I think it's interesting just because I think a lot of when we were prepping with like we did a little bit of shot listing and storyboarding and stuff, and it was so interesting to see like how drastically that changed.
Right.
With us going with more handheld than we initially had like planned, I think. But again, it's just like you're feeling it on set, and I think that's like the beauty of collaboration is like, Cesar was feeling it, I was feeling it. It was like we kind of have to incorporate this more, and try some crazy stuff,
right,
and see what works and what doesn't.
Right, for sure. What was the crew size?
So I had a first and a second, Kyle Novak and Brennan Fries. They're both great. If any Dallas producers are listening to this, you guys should hire them. I'm trying to think. We had a DIT, David Gleason. We had a Steadicam for one of the days, and then I'm trying to think. Besides that, on as far as our G&E teams, we were 4 and 4. So, Juan Romero is my gaffer, phenomenal gaffer. I mean, he's incredible. And then Nate Telk was my key grip.
Okay.
And again, phenomenal key grip. I mean, it was amazing. It was so amazing to work with them because their teams were all amazing. It was so cool because it was so cool to work with them because both of them, it was like Juan, for example, we're in this tiny room. I mean, smaller than this, about the same size as this actually. And then we're shooting this drum scene and we're trying to make it dynamic.
Right.
It's like, we had the help of, it was kind of like a gray stone wall type of painted gray stone wall. And there was these 2 windows and that was it. And it was like, so we could kind of make it pretty dynamic. We still had to bring in, like, somehow fit an 8x in that room.
Right.
Some floppies, like just, and then used light mats and all this other stuff. I think what benefited us, I think, with that was like it was like Juan is just so experienced that having him there and just being like I would just be sitting there and Juan would be like, I'm like looking at it and like I don't know if he could tell that I was looking at it and like wanted something different, but I would like turn to him to say something and he's already getting the floppy out. Right. To do some neg fill, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm like, this is like insane. Like, it was amazing. And like he's already calling down, and Nate's already got it on standby, and it's just like it made my job so easy. It was like Juan was reading my mind, and like Nate knew. I think like after the first day, he knew that I liked to like neg fill, or that I liked. I just really liked to extra diffuse light. So he had like stuff on standby. His team had it, and they were like ready to move it like immediately every time. We had a car rig and Nate's team just killed it like so fast. I mean, I was kind of like, he told me like to like the minute how long it was going to take. And it was like perfectly, like it was amazing. Yeah, essentially, I guess that would make it like, I think there were like 12 people on my team specifically, total, if you count Genie plus camera. But I think overall crew size too, I think, I don't know, it's hard to like remember how many people were there because like I was so just like
locked in.
I was just calling stuff and then pacing back and forth in the corner, like trying to process like all that stuff. But I would say it was probably solid like 35 or 40. And some days were a lot heavier on people, and that's not including talent. Talent. There was a day that we had a party scene, so had a bunch of people show up for that, But yeah, so it was a fairly decent size, and we were all really efficient. we had 3 days, but we had a ton of stuff to do and tons of different locations. And so just like how efficient everybody was and like moving from point A to point B.
So after you wrap this project and as you're moving forward as a cinematographer, what is your relationship and your approach with cinematography and technology?
Yeah. So when I started out, and I was always like, I always thought, you need to have the newest, you need to know every piece of technology on set.
Mm-hmm.
And, you need to have the newest red camera, and you need to have the newest, you need to be using the newest LED technology and all that. And as, I don't know, ever since I turned 30, I would say it's really changed for me because I think I viewed it as such a technical position, like, and it is. There's an aspect of being technical, but the more I talk with people, it's like about cinematography, especially the guys who've been there for a while. Like, they understand it and they understand how it works. Granted, there weren't as many different types of lights back then.
Right.
Like, for example, a guy who's maybe that I talk with a lot, who's in his 70s. Like, he's there was no LEDs back when he was. I mean, granted, he has worked with LEDs since, but like when he was starting out, there wasn't. So like he knew, okay, I know what an 18K is. I know, I know what I know my bleach muslins and my flags and my all that stuff, my silks. And I think that stuff's important. I guess I wouldn't call that technology, like some of it, but like the more that, for me, the more that I've gotten, the more that I've been like around, I've kind of realized, especially when I turned 30, it was like I realized, like I was like I'm seeing all these lights and and all this stuff, and there's some amazing technology that's come out. I don't want to like knock any of it like specifically, but like I was like, I don't really care about any of this. Like I was thinking about it. I'm seeing all these different lights and and I'm like, I just like really don't care. Like I think like with technology, like I keep up with some of the camera stuff. For me, the Alexa 35 came out. I was all over that. Like I was researching it, all this stuff. Because I think it's important for, especially if a cinematographer is going to know anything, it's camera and lenses. And so I'm always looking at lenses, always looking at cameras. But I think like there's stuff like I don't need to know what the newest Teradek does.
Right.
Like I don't care. Like I mean, obviously, like it's good to know. Okay, a Teradek can go to is like Frame.io or something like that.
Right.
Like it's good to know that it can do that. I don't need to know how to make it go to Frame.io.
Right.
And or stuff with lights. Like, oh, this light does this. It's like I just know where I want the light to come from. Like my gaffer's job is to do that. And if anything, if I'm I feel like the more I was studying technology, the more I was like in my head micromanaging how my crew is supposed to do things. Like, because then I was like, oh, like, is that right though? Or like, no, I want you to use this light. It's like I know for me, my preference is always tungsten. Like using like a tungsten light over an LED, preferably because of quality of light.
Right.
But like I also know that's not always the most practical solution.
Right.
So we're using an HMI over an LED or whatever, like all that stuff. Like there's practical things that just make sense to use. And especially with like budgets today too. Like you can't get like with a tow plant generator and have like 6 18Ks outside.
Right.
When you have you're shooting a $50,000 small budget commercial, like you can't do that. But I think so. There was something too. I just in hearing stuff, like talking with like some other again some cinematographers, is like hearing so much more about how, for me, it's more about the art of it,
right?
And and not making it the most like doing what's right for the story. And I don't feel like I I think technology aids it, but I don't think that it, like, using the latest technology does not make your project better.
Right.
Or is not, maybe it doesn't serve the project the way that it should.
Right.
And I always think of, I read a lot. I have it in my backpack here is like cinematographer style by, what's his name? I'm trying to remember which ASC did it. I think it was John Farr. I don't know how you say his last name.
Yeah, I think that's
Fauer, I believe. That one, he asks everybody that question is like, what is the relationship between, technology and between, and like style and like cinematography style.
right.
And there was this amazing quote that I was reading it last night on the airplane. And there's this quote from Oliver Curtis, who is he's a BSc. And I wrote it down here because I was like just so amazing with it. And he said, the trouble with technology is that it may liberate style, but it can obliterate substance. All that matters is the storytelling. And like, I was just thinking about that as like, I think sometimes we rely and use technology as like, it's almost like a crutch sometimes.
Right.
And so, and then I was at a clubhouse conversation with the ASC with Hoyte Van Hoytema. I hope that's how you say it properly. His name, but and one of the things that he said was he said this quote, and I swear if they had a tattoo gun there, I would have got it tattooed right then. Like I'm not even kidding. He said, some of the best advice when it comes to like everything is not worrying about how like precise it is, right? Like how because it might not fit the story. And so his quote was, "Less precision, more soul." And I was like, holy crap. Like that's like literally what I feel about cinematography. And I think and there's other people say it. Bradford Young will literally go on for days about it, and it's like it's amazing. Like it's like and Deakins too. Deakins will say it. Deakins will say, he said stuff like how he doesn't feel that sometimes and he got this from another guy too that why am I blanking on his name? But anyway, Gordon Willis has said it. Everyone like it's like you don't need the fanciest gadgets, like because sometimes like making the most precise image isn't what helps the story. It doesn't tell the story in the way that it should. So that's always like what I've been going through in my little called a midlife crisis. But like, it's like I've just been so. I watch movies like Carol. Have you seen Carol? Mm-hmm. Ed Lockman shot it. And actually it's like I remember like I watched that film and it's like, it's so beautifully shot. It was 2015, it looks like it's the 50s, obviously the period piece, whatever. But like just like how, I know they used some stuff that was not there, but it's like still using tungsten and just like using this old film stock. It's like 16 millimeter, I think they shot on. And it's like, you don't need, I think if we're just sitting here using the latest technology, like that'd be shot on at the time, I guess it would have been a mini and, or an SXT. Yeah, something like that, I think. And I don't like it, the film would look totally different. It wouldn't feel the same way. It wouldn't have that grit to it that like shooting on 16, does. And anyway, so that's just like my thoughts on it, is that I just feel like sometimes things are shot too clean because we have the ability to do it because of the technology, but like it doesn't fit the story that we're trying to tell.
Right. That's awesome. So is there a certain genre of commercial, documentary, feature? Like what's on the horizon for you as a creative?
I think for me, I'm always drawn to narrative. And so narrative commercials are always, my go-to. I mean, the one project that I've directed so far was that it was a narrative commercial. And so as a DP, I feel like that's it still rings true. Like I want, like I want in an ideal world, I'm not opposed to shooting whatever, but like in an ideal world, like I want something that like people are gonna look at and be like, wow, like I mean, like you see the product briefly, but it's about the feeling that behind it.
Right.
And I don't there's a decent amount of commercials that do that now, but like I don't feel like that was something that was like really big when I started, like in 2017, or that there was a lot of that going on. I think it was still very product based, and I still think it is. I mean, obviously, like everyone wants to go sell their
Right.
soda can or whatever, or their car, but like I think that's kind of the stuff that I want to shift myself towards a little more if I can. I think also, and then I want to be in narrative more. I want to eventually be doing features, and I want to be doing, I'm gonna be doing features and shorts and, all that stuff. And yeah, so I think, in essence, I guess like with that stuff, like I want it to be stuff too that is like really good stories and not just like I'm shooting, like, especially with narrative. I don't want to shoot things just because I want to make money. Like, I want to shoot things because like my heart's behind it. And and that's hard because like, I mean, I've read some pretty bad scripts before.
Right.
I've read some great scripts. It's like it's I think finding a script that like my heart's behind and that I'm very passionate about. It's been a little challenging, and so that's why like next year I'm working on a project that I can't really talk too much about it right now, but it's a project that I'm very passionate about, and like I am directing it, and because of like and worked with a screenwriter on writing it because it's a project that's really like close to my heart, but also is very like I have a lot of control over like making it something that I want to shoot, while still telling the like the amazing story that it's about.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what it is with as far as with narrative, and then again commercial. It's like pushing towards like narrative commercials. Like there's some really good ones. I always think of Aaron and Winston Tao, who are like I've met with them a few times. Amazing directing duo, twin brothers. And their storytelling is like incredible. It's one of the biggest inspirations as far as for the headphone thing that I directed. For Get Closer, is like they had a commercial that I just saw and I just was like, wow, this is like that's the stuff I want to shoot.
Right.
So like the stuff they do, that's a very good, I guess, representation of what I'd like to be doing.
Right. Okay.
In the commercial world.
Yeah, no, for sure. So how can people keep up with you? Like, give us your website, your socials.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super active on. I mean, I use Instagram a fair amount. I just post on stories. So if you're really interested in looking at what music I'm listening to, or like what, I guess stills that I'm doing or whatever, my work's on there too. It's just at Matt Sill, like MATTSILL, and then my website's just mattsill.com, same spelling. Okay. Other than that, I'm not. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, so I try to like not stay on it as much.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting, and it's funny too because even though I post these podcasts and I do some stuff socially too. It's very similar where it's like sometimes I'll do like this big hard push on social just because I know it's important.
Yeah.
But like people send me comments and things, and like I just don't see it because I don't be on Instagram like that or Facebook. It's like I'll post stuff and then immediately just start working or other things. So
I just got to remind people I'm still alive and that and it's always funny. Like I have a Facebook, I never use it.
Mm-hmm.
I just use it to make sure that all my friends are like well.
Right, and birthday reminders.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, I'm actually really good at that, so I don't need it necessarily for that all the time. But like, it's more of like, and then just that way, people are like, okay, like he's still alive, he's still breathing,
Right.
He's still listening to Bring Me the Horizon, like he's good, whatever. And like that's pretty much all the updates they get.
Right.
I mean, I took my birthday off there. I was like, it is the most basic. I mean, like my picture is literally just a black box on Facebook, but like
That's
people
funny.
at least know I'm still alive. So I think that's the main thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing with social media for me, I guess. But
awesome. Cool. Well, Matt, I appreciate you for coming.
Yeah, man.
In person. It's very rarely that you can get two DPs to sit down and talk.
I only agreed because there's no camera in here on me.
Oh well, yeah. Like people ask me all the time. They're like, "Why don't you make it visual? Because it's a visual. You talk about projects and things." I'm like, man, that's just so much work.
You know how many DPs would turn it down?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I would turn it down, and I'm the one hosting.
You're the host.
Awesome, Matt. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Of course.
So again, I want to thank Matt for coming on the Capturing Light podcast. Be sure to follow him. If you want to see the project, go to his social, follow him, get the link so you can see BU. And yeah, just keep up with what he's doing because he's putting out great work and just a cool cinematographer. So if you have any questions for me, you can follow me at Gaddis. You can always send me an email, les@gaddisvisuals.com. And that's all I got. So thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Capturing Light.
Thanks for listening to Capturing Light with Les Gaddis, a Director of Photographers podcast. Inspiring and educating filmmakers like you so you can illuminate your vision. A Gaddis Visuals production.